Morning, Team Sunday School. This is Brother Jason in his basement. It is Saturday morning, and I've got a Sunday school lesson to teach because I have to take my family to Santa's Village, which is a water park in West Dundee. And yeah, we're staying in a hotel that night, and so I won't be at church in the morning. I don't get out of teaching. So here we are. A couple of announcements about today's lesson. This is probably going to be the worst lesson I've ever taught. Probably, if not the worst, then like top five. Only because this is probably one of the few times where I'm teaching something I don't really know. Um, Daniel chapter 7 is hard. It's hard. And so, um, one of the jobs of a teacher is, especially a Bible teacher, is to make clear what God is saying, and I don't know what He's saying. So, so how am I going to teach it? So the thing is that some stuff I know, and then some stuff I don't know. Um, we're going to be talking about prophecy today, so some stuff is clear, and then some stuff is just like I don't know. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to pray like you do. And then I am going to just dive in. How do you guys feel about that? I don't hear anything. I don't think I would hear anything even if I was there. So let me pray, and I guess we'll get started. God, you already know. If you don't make this lesson applicable, useful, helpful, if you're not a part of it, if you don't make it real, then we're wasting our time, Lord. I've been given a task that I cannot complete. That being said, I ask most humbly, Lord, that you will use it in spite of me to make clear what you are saying about the past and the future. Please bless everybody under the sound of my voice. Give them eyes to see and ears to hear. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okay, so let me pull up some notes. So we're in Daniel chapter 7. And what I like to call, starting in Daniel chapter 7 through the rest of the book, is called the scary side of the Bible, because it goes from teaching about life and, principles and things that you can apply to the end of the world and what's going to happen. And so, again, my job today is just to teach what is this trying to tell you. So this lesson is not going to be so much about how you can be a greater person or what God wants you to know about working on your pride or your sin. Like, today's lesson is about just what's going to happen at the end of the world. So that being said, we go to Daniel chapter 7, and I will start to read. For those who do not know, I use the NLT version of the Bible. And if you have any problems with that, then, see me after class. Or call me or text me. So let's read Daniel chapter 7, verse 1. Earlier, during the first year of King Belshazzar's reign in Babylon, Daniel had a dream and saw visions as he laid in his bed. He wrote down the dream, and this is what he saw. So let's start here. All the chapters after chapter 6 don't go in sequential order, time wise. So at this point, I guess Nebuchadnezzar is dead, but his son Belshazzar is reigning in Babylon, and Cyrus, or King Darius, hasn't taken over yet. So this is in the past, in comparison to where we ended up in chapter 6 with I think King Cyrus throwing Daniel into the lion's den. Yeah, so just know that they don't go in sequential order, which makes it even harder to understand because it's not written in a way that is, like we're used to things being written. Nevertheless, we adjust to what the Bible is doing and we go from there. Verse 2. In my vision that night, I, Daniel, saw a great storm churning the surface of the sea with strong winds blowing in every direction. The four huge beasts came up, and then four huge beasts came up out of the water, each different from the others. Um, Here's something that you need to know. The four beasts all represent four different empires. These are it's the same thing. We're about to go over the same thing we went over in Daniel chapter 2 with a huge statue being made part of it being made part of gold, part of silver, bronze, and iron. And then the feet were like iron and clay. So we went over that in Daniel chapter 2. And now we're getting the same dream in um, Daniel chapter 7. And one of the things that I've taught you guys repeatedly is that when God says something more than once, he really wants you to get it. And so I know this is important. I just don't know all that it means. So let me see. I got some notes here about what we just read. And oh, well, just know that these beasts are powerful, but they're nothing in comparison to God. Also, in Nebuchadnezzar's dream, he saw the beast as, he saw the empires as metals. In Daniel's dream, he shows them as beasts. Um, Here's what you need to know about that before we get to the first beast. Men and the animals, I believe, like the mammals, the lions and tigers and bears and all that stuff, were both all created on the sixth day. Um, and one of the things that helps separate us from animals is the fact that we have the spirit of God, or at least we were created in the image of God. We have His spirit. But as man has sinned and gotten away from God, we tend to return back to our animal instincts, somewhat to speak. And so, what you'll see in society is that people are often moving like animals in a lot of ways, just moving by their instincts and what they feel, but not necessarily being led by God, and that leads us into doing all kinds of crazy stuff, which we also see, happening today in society. But just to know that you, apart from God, sometimes brings out more of the savage in you, or more of the animal in you, and that's just not always the best thing. Um, and also that God sees these kingdoms as creatures and not necessarily as people. Like He sees them as terrible animals, or really rough animals. And so, enough about animals. Let's talk. Let's read chapter verse 4 and see what verse 4 has to say. So, verse 4: the first beast was like a lion with eagle's wings. As I watched, its wings were pulled off, and it was left standing, with its two hind feet on the ground, like a human being, and it was given a human mind. So, the first kingdom, as you guys know, is Babylon, which is Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom. Now, Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom was represented in his dream by gold, which means that his kingdom was the best. Even though it wasn't the biggest, it was still, the quality was better than the quantity. Um, his kingdom is represented by the lion, which is the king of the jungle, and the eagle, which is like, one of the strongest birds ever. So it's parallel to chapter 2 in the fact that he's got like the best of the animals. But the verse says that his wings were pulled off, and as you guys know, Nebuchadnezzar had to be humbled by God, and when he was humbled by God, he was given the mind of a beast, and he ate grass for 7 years in his garden. Fun fact about Nebuchadnezzar's garden, and one of the things that made his empire like really stand out. So a long time ago, before I was alive, there used to be this thing called the seven wonders of the world. I don't know all seven, but one of the seven was Nebuchadnezzar's hanging garden in Babylon. He had built one of his wives a a mountain. Like he had built her a mountain and like over like a brick, and then he overlaid it with dirt and stuff, and he made it like this huge garden for one of his wives, because she missed her home wherever she had come from, and people would come from all over the world to see that garden, because it was such a magnificent feat that somebody had done that. And so if you guys get bored and want to look up some fun things about Babylon, that was one of the fun things about Babylon. That being said, he got humbled, and when he was wandering around eating that grass, he was eating that grass in that garden that he had made. One of the seven wonders of the world. And so then it says in the verse, at the end, verse 4, and it was given a human mind. So then, Nebuchadnezzar eventually got his mind back. And that whole verse is just talking about Babylon. So that one is pretty clear. And now it gets a little bit harder. So then let's go to verse 5. Then I saw a second beast, and it looked like a bear. Roar. It was rearing up on one side, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And I heard a voice saying, "Get up and devour the flesh of many people." All right. So the second great kingdom is the Medes and the Persians, which is King Cyrus and King Darius. These guys are the people who took over after Babylon. You guys already know that. They're represented by the silver in Daniel chapter 2. The reason why the bear is raised up on one side is because one side of the Persians were a little bit more powerful than the Medes were. Even though it's called the Medes and the Persian Empire, the Persians were more powerful. So the fact that it was standing up a little bit higher on one side represents that. It has 3 ribs in its mouth. I don't really know what the 3 ribs mean in its mouth, outside of the fact that it really liked eating flesh. But some people believe that it is the 3 big countries that are civilizations that the Medes and the Persians took over. One was Babylon. Obviously, take over Babylon, that's a big deal. And then the Lydians, which I know nothing about, and of course the Egyptians, which were also a great world power in that day. And then of course this bear was really big and really liked to devour flesh. And so one of the things that if you look it up, you'll see that the kingdom of the Medes and the Persians was even bigger than the kingdom of Babylon. Like I said, the quality wasn't as great, but the size and the landscape that they took over was pretty huge. And so that's all I really have to say about them. I did try to find more information about those 3 ribs, but man, dude, I could not get more information. Like I've been working on this. I've been working on this a lot. Probably about, I don't know, probably about 4 or 5 hours in. And I ain't like what I would think I would have for that level of effort. I do not have. All right, so you guys want to hear about the third beast? So glad that you asked. All right, so verse 6. Then the third of these strange beasts appeared. It looked like a leopard. It had 4 bird wings on its back, and it had 4 heads. Great authority was given to this beast. Okay, so for me, this is like one of the clearest beasts, because of some of my history. So the third beast represents Greece, and Greece at the time of the rise of Greece was ran by a guy named Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great, I studied in high school because I did a book report on him. And so I know a little bit more about this kingdom, the Greece, than I do about the other ones because by chance, I happen to know some things about Alexander the Great before I became the Bible freak that I am. So Alexander the Great was incredibly young and an incredibly smart general. Alexander the Great had taken over the known world by the time he was 28. It took him 12 years to do so. All of this is represented in the animal, the leopard, which is already one of the fastest cats. Add to that the fact that it's got wings, and then it makes total sense that this animal represents him because he was so fast. He was quick with it. You know, like if you ever watch Mike Tyson's old fights, like it does not take him but a couple of seconds to knock somebody out. Like he was in military sense, Alexander was like that, and there's not been another Alexander the Great since Alexander the Great. So that's why they call him great. But as you guys know, this leopard had 4 heads. Why does it have 4 heads? Well, unfortunately, Alexander the Great died at 32. So he died young. And when he died, his kingdom was split up between his 4 top generals. And his 4 top generals then ran the Grecian Empire. Let's see here. What else do the notes say? Okay, I said everything the what the notes said. So deal with it. But yeah, so that's what that animal represents. Of course, all of this is in the past. Now for the worst part. The last beast is hard. That's the best way I could say it. Last beast is hard. Let's read. I'll read the verse. I'll read verse 7, and then I will flounder for a while, and you guys will just be bored with what I'm saying. Also, for whoever's showing this video, I believe it is Shannon. Feel free to pause and have discussion. If there's anything to pause and have discussion about, if you guys have any questions, please ask the person who is presenting for additional information. I probably should have had Reverend Patton come in because he seems to be knowledgeable about all things Bible. But we digress. Verse 7. Then in my vision that night, I saw a fourth beast, terrifying, dreadful, and very strong. It devoured and crushed its victims with huge iron teeth and trampled their remains beneath its feet. It was different from any of the other beasts, and it had 10 horns. So a couple things that you need to know about the fourth beast. The fourth beast is not compared to an animal. It's not a bear, it's not a lion, it's not an eagle, it's something else. The fourth beast is called the Roman Empire. The problem with the Roman Empire is this. The Roman Empire has failed. Like the Roman Empire failed. Like so Rome is no more. But according to the Bible, this beast still kind of reigns or is around until the Antichrist is revealed and Jesus comes back. And so in some way that I've not been able to figure out, the Roman Empire is still around. Maybe not in the forefront, but definitely in some way that I haven't been able to figure out. That being said, if I could theorize, I have to believe that it's got to be something spiritual, because I don't see a physical manifestation of Rome running things. So it's got to be something spiritual about that, but I don't know. That's my thoughts. Let's keep going. Oh, the other thing, we're gonna get to this in verse 24 of this chapter, but the 10 horns represent 10 different kings. So there you go, horns being kings. Verse 8. As I was looking at the horns, suddenly another small horn appeared among them. 3 of the first horns were torn out by the roots to make room for it. This horn had eyes like human eyes and a mouth that was boasting arrogantly. So this part has not happened yet. From what I've been able to read from, different commentaries and studying this stuff, is that most people believe that this next horn is going to be like the Antichrist, which is like, not Jesus' opposite, but I guess if you could, but for lack of a better term, like the devil's Jesus, if that makes sense. While we're on the topic, people only counterfeit things that are worth something. And so people counterfeit money, people counterfeit diamonds, zirconias, and what you see with the devil often, because he doesn't like really create stuff, he often counterfeits. And so one of the things that he counterfeits, of course, is Christ. And so he's going to have his own version, knockoff, 50% off. But one of the things that will help you be able to pick out the Antichrist when you see him is that this dude is going to talk very recklessly. Like, he's going to be very boastful and arrogant, according to the Bible. And so you need to remember, as you go through life and you're trying to figure it out, one of the things that that is going to be a telltale sign is that this dude is going to be talking out of the side of his mouth. A little bit like Donald Trump, but I'm pretty sure it'll be in a worse way. That being said, let's keep going. So the other thing that you need to remember about this Antichrist guy, whenever he shows up, he's going to take over three kingdoms or 3 king spots. So when you see the dude take over 3, like not 1, not 2, but 3 different kingdoms, just perk up. Just look around and be like, yo, I think that might be the guy. Or the girl. The Bible doesn't discriminate. And so just keep that in the back of your mind. Verse 9, no, verse 8, no, 9, verse 9. Now we move on from the beast, and now we go to heaven, and now we talk about God. Verse 9. I watched as thrones were put in place, and the Ancient One sat down to judge. His clothing was as white as snow, his hair like the purest wool. He sat on a fiery throne with wheels of blazing fire. So a couple things about heaven. As you guys have heard, it's a really nice place. And in this verse, it describes what God looks like. In case you've ever wondered what God looks like, let me tell you what he looks like. He wears white. His hair is, I believe, also white, and his hair is like wool. There have been cases, this is why some people believe, Jesus is black, because the Bible also describes Jesus' hair being like wool. And if you guys ever Google wool or Google like sheep, like when they pull it off, it can sometimes resemble like African American hair. So That's why some people believe that. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying I get it. But yeah, he sits on a fiery throne. Just know, with wheels of blazing fire. Let's keep going. Verse 10. And a river of fire was pouring out, flowing from his presence. Millions of angels ministered to him. Many millions stood around to attend to him. Then the court began its session and the books were open. Some things you need to know about your first encounter with God. In the sense of when you see him face to face when you die. The Bible describes a very scary sight. There's this dude who is super bright, got on all this white stuff. His throne is like in fire, and there is a river of fire pouring out and flowing from his presence. When you meet God, you're gonna know that you're gonna be in the presence of God. Like, it's not gonna be something like, people have this concept. They're gonna go up there and they're gonna argue with him about how they've been a good person and all the people that they've helped and whatever. But whenever you meet that dude, you're not gonna say jack. You're gonna be dead silent because you're gonna know that you're dealing with God. Of course, God is kind enough to where he doesn't flex and show off that he's God. He is so kind that he will let people believe that he doesn't exist because that's what they want to believe. But be sure when you meet him, you will know that you have met him. It's an encounter you will never forget. And so just know that you're gonna be freaked out. That's gonna be your response. You're gonna be freaked out when you see God. Maybe not Jesus, but God is a beast. Verse 11. It says, let's see here. Let's take a brief time check. Okay, we're at 27 minutes. I'm gonna try to go to 45.